you share some key initiatives that have been instrumental in shaping Lodha's ESG strategy over the past decade?
So see, real estate can be characterized by two, major elements. One is that it is the built environment contributes to 40% of the global GHG emissions. So that way, from a climate aspect, it is very important. Similarly, after agriculture, this is the second largest employer. And at the same time, when you look at the growth that the country is seeing, and especially the fact that India is considered a bright spot in global economy, and almost 15% of the global growth is coming from India. And this is not a matter of only this year. It will be like for decades to come, it will be like that, which will then fuel a lot of infrastructure development, a lot of real estate development, affordability increase, people moving into newer homes, crores and crores of people. So the amount of impact that the real estate is going to have in not only on the climate side, environmental side, but also on the social side, and in also driving the growth, it's very important to consider these ESG issues as long-term risks and keep solving them as we go ahead. Built environment and the construction industry is sort of a unifier for a lot of other industries as well. So if you see, unlike any other industry, when you talk about construction, it is also bringing in many other industry emissions into it. For example, steel, cement, even transportation, the way you make cities. So if you make cities where people don't have to drive, then those transportation emissions also go away. But if you make cities like they are being built today, that there is a commercial hub, and then there are these residential satellite towns, and people have to commute every day and do a lot of commute-related, transportation-related emissions. So it's so critical. So the built environment and real estate is so critical for the country as well as this overall ESG sustainability agenda. So that's one part. Second, what Lodha has been doing is we have always looked at it as a risk bucket and an area where we must demonstrate leadership and responsibility. So if you look at the on the environment side, built environment side, we understand that being the largest real estate developer in the country, it is important for us to pave the way for the entire industry ecosystem. So we have created a sustainability strategy which rests on the two pillars of resilience and decarbonisation, which is ultimately covering the physical and the transition risks of climate. And therefore, we have been doing a lot of initiatives on resilience, water conservation, and biodiversity enhancement, and so forth. But quite recently, we have also entered into considering the global climate models and IPCC scenarios as forming the basis of our design, especially in relation to the flood risks and the water stress and the heat stress and so forth. And probably we are the only people who are doing a study like that and trying to incorporate it in our city scale designs. What we expect is that when we do things like that, they may start generating an interest in the wider ecosystem. Maybe the urban local bodies start following such methodologies, and it sorts of happens across the ecosystem. On decarbonization, we partnered with Rocky Mountain Institute. They are actually a long-time partner. We have been working with them since 2018. But this specific partnership we made in 2021, where we formed something called Lodha Net Zero Urban Accelerator. It's a platform for the supply chain and the policymakers and industry to come together and solve for the decarbonization of built environment. So here what we have done is we have broken down the overall carbon spectrum of built environment into its component parts, starting from the emissions that happen in the materials that make up the building, and then the emissions that happen during the operations of the building. So that on the demand side. Then on the clean energy transition, because once you have demand, you need to have energy supplies. So how can we have those energy supplies as clean energy? And then lastly, we have clean transportation, which is basically walkability, shared transportation, and electric vehicles. So what we have been doing is we have multiple initiatives across these focus areas on environment. So starting from all the elements of resilience and all the elements of decarbonization. On social side, I would say that you can actually further break it up into two parts. One is all the social impact that we do in the ecosystem where we operate. Our own people, the communities where we build, the residents that live in our developments and so forth. So, all the best practices and not only that, but the basic aspect of engaging in walking, participating, making them participate in the journey with us. That's one. And then the other part is the larger nation building activity, where we have programs like Lodha Genius program and Lodha Unnati, which is a women empowerment and upskilling initiative, a flagship initiative. And then obviously there is work of Lodha Foundation, which is working on education, livelihood, and health. So that's the overall spectrum of ESG that Lodha has been operating and has been focusing in the last 1 decade.
Okay, so speaking about the eco-friendly projects that is undertaken by this company, can you elaborate on how green bonds serve as the financing mechanism for these projects and what impact they have on the company's commitment to sustainability and beyond Lodha?
Okay, so green bonds, we have not yet come out with a green bond. We have been evaluating a green bond for quite some time. I think when the time will be ripe and the packaging can be done well, I think we'll do that. But green bond is just one green financing instrument. There are multiple green financing aspects which are associated with projects like this. We availed a sustainability linked credit line through a local bank financed by an international financing agency last year. So that's where you have to prove the performance of the project on certain environmental criteria, and if you are able to do that, you get some preferential rates in that loan or a credit line. That we have availed. Obviously, that's beneficial, and more the market is moving quite a bit in that direction. Then there is also, now you would have seen last 6-8 months, you would have seen the green home loans, where if a project is already green certified or is performing to certain environmental criteria, then the banks offering loan to the customers are giving some preferential rates to the customers, because then they are getting financing at discounted rates from outside. So there are multiple ways in which the sustainability is linked to the finance ecosystem, and that's how we are tapping it.
Previously, you have mentioned about the net zero emission. The Lodha's net zero accelerator is quite an unique initiative. So can you explain the specific aspects of embodied carbon's passive design and green mobility that the accelerator focuses on, and how it contributes to the net zero carbon, the new normal for built environments? Would you elaborate a little bit on that?
Take some time. So I'll just break it up into 3 parts: embodied carbon, demand, and mobility, if that was the 3rd point. So in embodied carbon, first of all, there is a major lack of awareness in the ecosystem as to what is embodied carbon and how much it is and how does it have to go down. So starting with that, we need to actually do some sort of a baselining exercise for everybody to understand that how much embodied carbon is there in a building. It's as high as 25 to 30%, and in certain types of buildings it can be even half of the overall life cycle emissions. So we did a baselining exercise starting with that, and then we found out that what are those key 7-8 items which comprise most of it. So it's basically the steel, concrete, aluminium, glass, blockwork, paint, tiles, things like that. So how can these 8 items, which comprise 80% of the embodied carbon, be the material selection or the design efficiency be targeted to reduce these emissions? Now, although you can do a baselining, the supply chain in India is very opaque. There's a lot of data scarcity. So this supply chain does not know that how much embodied carbon is there in the product that they are selling. So we need to then start working with the supply chain to not only make them aware, but to also push them to come out with this data. So that's step 2. Now, step 3 is that once this data is available, we have to try out the low carbon options so that the confidence develops in the ecosystem, basis which scaling up can happen. So we have been doing low carbon concrete pilots. So we have there are a few buildings in one project called Upper Thane, where we have a triple blend concrete mix. We are now planning to do more pilots on LC3 concrete, which is limestone calcined clay. This is a new cement concrete which has come up. Then we are also actually still toying with use of geopolymer concrete, etc. Then on steel side, we have been using recycled steel in certain of our projects. We are trying to push that ecosystem to get their material green certified and also come out with that environmental performance data. Plus, we are also trying to find out how can we reduce this waste of steel, plus how can we replace this steel by something else, maybe GFRP rebars in certain conditions in below ground construction. Then we are conducting certain pilots on the low carbon blockwork. So we are using blockwork with high recycled content. We are also using AC blocks. We are also checking out few new startup companies who are coming up with zero carbon blocks. So those pilots we are doing in this financial year, and I think in our next reporting cycle we will be reporting how did it go about. Apart from this, we are also trying to do certain construction technology alternatives. For example, in all likelihood, we will try a small pilot on 3D printing to figure out that how can and in what aspects 3D printing increases durability and reduces carbon. So it will be a small pilot, maybe a very small ground plus one building, but there is all likelihood that we will be starting it in next 2 to 3 months. Then we are also trying to do a small pilot with mass laminated timber. We understand that we will never, I mean, the type of buildings that we do, they will never be made in timber. But since this is one new technology, just to understand and learn from a pilot, we'll probably do a very, very small pilot in some landscape space to see. So that's all that we are trying to do on the embodied carbon side. The idea is that as much as we will do, this will generate confidence in the overall developer ecosystem. Plus, it will also help send the right feedback to the supplier ecosystem, so that if a product is not yet right or ripe, they will be able to tweak it to meet the field conditions. So that's the idea. Plus, in this process, we will be able to prove that how much embodied carbon can be reduced by deploying these alternatives. So today, if our baseline is say 400 kg per kg, we might come down to say 300 kg per kg in next 3 years, and then that can become a benchmark in the industry for everybody to follow it, along with all the data that we will be releasing on those lines. So that's one. On the passive design side and equipment efficiency, there also we need to actually push the envelope and find out what is the next gen. So on air conditioning, for example, we are trying new technologies. There was, if you would have heard about global cooling prize by Rocky Mountain by RMI, where certain air conditioning units were the winners, and the criteria of that contest was to create a air conditioning unit which is 5 times less impacting on the environment. So these are concept units, like concept cars. These are not commercially viable air conditioning options. Now their pre-production units are being field tested in Palava. So a lot of insights will come out of this field testing, whereby we can then decide and engage with that supplier ecosystem as to how to change the or update the specifications to a level where they are commercially viable. So they may not be maybe 5 times less impacting, maybe 3 times less impacting, but they will become commercially viable. So how can we participate in the development of such pilots? Then we are working on with 2 companies to try out pilots on grid interactivity. Then we are on the adaptive thermal comfort. We are trying to come out with a model which actually proves that it's not necessary to be at 24, 25 degrees. You can actually have an elevated temperature and still have experiential delight. So it actually then will enable us to create affordable developments where we can have less reliance on air conditioning and still achieve thermal comfort for the masses. That can ultimately translate into a framework or a format where the large urbanization needs of India are met without all the energy requirements of air conditioning. So thermal comfort is achieved without air conditioning. So those that we are doing. We are doing several other things. We're trying to accelerate the usage of BLDC fans. We are trying to aggregate the requirement in our ecosystem, and thereby and at the same time proving the impact of the energy saving impact of this transition. So, and like that, there are multiple other initiatives. On I think third, you asked about transportation. So on transportation, we have understood that ultimately there is going to be a EV transition, which will then be fed from a greener grid that will decarbonize transportation. So to enable this EV transition, what's needed is a charging infrastructure which allows this transition to happen. The issue with the charging infrastructure is that you cannot overdo it or underdo it. So if you overdo it and you provide say 20% of all car parks will be EV chargeable, then you put a lot of capex, but there are not so many cars. At the same time, if you underdo it, then people don't get the confidence of buying those cars and making this transition. So there, we are working with RMI to actually find that sweet spot and the right trajectory of scaling up this infrastructure. And at the same time, we are trying to also collect this data and put it out in the public domain. So what's the ideal way, and what has been going on across the world to enable this transition? Countries like Norway and etc., where this transition has happened before us. So we are trying to get lessons from there and trying to implement it in our ecosystem. We already have more than 100 public charger points in our developments. and roughly 2 million kilometers of vehicle charging is happening. Already, the number is ever increasing, so I think the number will be much higher by the end of this financial year.
Okay, so in the same note, like how are ESG metrics and reporting is evolving? Like if you could share your opinion on that, and what benefits do they bring to both investors and developers in terms of decision making and risk management?
ESG reporting metrics are quite varied, uh, and they're also dependent on the industry and geography. So if you look at India, you already know that BRSR has come out from SEBI, and uh, all the top companies are reporting along those lines. BRSR is also interoperable with GRI. It's basically based on that framework itself. Apart from this, there are other benchmarking uh, assessments that happen. They are sometimes voluntary, sometimes involuntary, and they have their own flavor. And like for example, you have Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, which is more focused on real estate, and then you have S&P Global Corporate Sustainability Assessment, which is more generic across industries, which is also that assessment is also the basis of Dow Jones Sustainability Index inclusion. Then you have other indices which assess you, FTSE, MSCI, and so forth. So these are all uh, uh, the what issues they consider material to the industry and to the country. Uh, Along those lines, they expect the companies to report. Now, uh, more or less, I would say that they are aligned, but obviously, depending on their own agenda, uh, some differences do exist. We have been reporting for quite some time. Uh, our data available in the public domain is, I think, from 2017-18 onwards. These reportings uh, uh, help us by in two ways. Number one, enable us to showcase or communicate where we stand when it comes to ESG issues, so that and it enhances transparency. The entire ecosystem comes to know what we are doing, how we have been doing, what has been our impact. So if there is an investor, they can go check a benchmark, figure out how we performed, and understand what our real impact is. That's one part. But more than that, what we find interesting is that as we started these measurements and reporting them, and also in increasing the depth and breadth of these measurements, we do get a lot of insights of how we function and what is our impact. And these insights help us update our policies, update our systems, institutionalize, uh, you know, newer high impact initiatives and so on. So it's on one side it is learning, and on the other side it is communication and transparency. So it helps these frameworks, but we believe that the whole system is still maturing, and in some time there will be a lot of coherence that you will find across these reporting frameworks.
Can you share me some successful examples of collaboration between stakeholders, government, developers, and investors in an effort in the real estate sector? Like what outcomes have they achieved in terms of sustainable development, in terms of their collaboration? Any initiative from your company?
Yeah, definitely. So we see it would really be very difficult to bring all stakeholders into one initiative and prove that it worked. But obviously, you'll always find a group of stakeholders coming together and creating impact. So if you see the we adopted, we were the first people to come out with one of the first people, I would say, to come up with this EV charging partnership with Tata Power. And at the same time, the government also started giving this subsidy for EV charging. So the developer is moving ahead. The policy is shifting in that direction. The supply chain being available in form of Tata Power. Plus, you would see that when we did that, suddenly other developers also started doing that. So if you look at all the major developers, you will find that such partnerships or such engagements on their projects also exist. So what was completely absent, it so everyone started moving on those lines, and that started. Same is applicable uh, on I would say even the green buildings. So green buildings have been less and less people were doing it in the residential side, but when few of the corporates picked up, the cost of doing that also came down. The government also incentivized doing that, and then the larger ecosystem started adopting. If you look at like the example that I gave you a while back about what we are trying to do with this new cement, what will happen is that as soon as we do it and we disclose it and we give this demand signal, more and more people will start doing it. And more you do it, more and more confidence will start getting generated in that product. So it's just a matter of acknowledging the opportunity, trying it out, and then it gets scaled up. So there has been so many examples in practically everything. If you look from
can you specify like one or two, like at the top of your head?
So I told you about the startup hour. I told you about the greener materials like these blocks. And we also take the case of air conditioning. So we have been buying 5-star air conditioning units and deploying them in affordable housing segment. So this has now helped to generate significant amount of demand. Normally, people do not buy high efficiency, super efficiency equipment. But when you start doing that, the customer starts asking for it. The manufacturer starts getting the scale. Therefore, the commercial advantages start coming into the equation. So if an individual goes out and buys an AC versus when we place an order of say 20,000 ACs, the economics start working out for everybody. So that's how this whole ecosystem works.
Yeah, from an industry perspective, like what role do you believe the real estate developers should play, like in future, in the collective endeavor towards a more sustainable, conscious future? Like when ending.
See, 40, as I told you, 40% of overall GHG emissions come from the built environment. If you look purely at real estate and we cut out the infrastructure and so forth, it will still be 25-30%. Now, if India has to decarbonize or India has to achieve the 2070 goal or decarbonization of the economy by 45% by 2030, and if 40%, 30% emissions are lying in this bucket, then it will have to be led by the developer ecosystem, because an individual or a small time building or an owner will not be able to do that. The bar will have to be set by the developers. The demand will have to be generated by the developers. The proof of concept for various green alternatives will have to be shown by these top developers. So I think it's extremely essential that the developer community moves in this direction. The second part is that the amount of development that is expected to happen, it cannot happen in the same old fragmented way. It will happen mostly in a with mass housing, mass affordable housing becoming the norm. That will anyways be developed by the leading developers. So it is very important that we do things right in the first place, and because we don't have time. So in that way, I think this has to be led by us.
So, like apart from all the points we have covered, would you like to add anything else?
So I think what I always add is Lodha Net Zero Urban Accelerator, which is a partnership with RMI. We touched upon it earlier, but obviously, paucity of time, we cannot go through everything that we are doing. So we can, direct interest towards it, because it's a platform. It's not only it's for everybody. So if there is any solution that needs to be tested, that needs to be scaled up, the Net Zero Urban Accelerator is available. The innovator, manufacturer, whoever can come and connect with us, and we can find out how we can test those initiatives on the field, and then help co-develop a solution which can be then scaled up across the country.